Step back in time with me to an era of elegance, simplicity, and charm. The 1950s, a decade when families gathered around dinner tables, children played freely in the streets, and life moved at a gentler pace. This was America in full bloom, prosperous, optimistic, and full of dreams. Join me as we explore the everyday moments that made the 50s truly golden. From kitchen aprons to chrome-trimmed cars, from soda fountains to Sunday drives, let's rediscover a time when the simple things brought the greatest joy. Family dinners were the cornerstone of American life in the 1950s. Every evening, families gathered around the dining table, dressed in their finest clothes. The father at the head of the table, mother proudly serving her home-cooked meal, and children eager to share stories from school. This wasn't just about food, it was about togetherness, tradition, and the values that held families strong. Sunday dinners were sacred. The golden afternoon light streaming through the windows symbolized the warmth and prosperity of the decade. A perfectly roasted turkey, fresh vegetables from the garden, and the whole family present. No distractions, no television during meals, just genuine conversation and laughter that echoed through suburban homes across America. The 1950s housewife took immense pride in her domestic skills. Her kitchen was her domain, filled with the latest modern appliances in cheerful pastel colors. Baking wasn't just a chore, it was an art form. Whether it was a pie for Sunday dinner or cookies for the children's lunchboxes, everything was made from scratch with love and dedication. Home baking was a badge of honor in the 50s. A woman's worth was often measured by her ability to create the perfect apple pie or the fluffiest cake. Cookbooks were treasured possessions, passed down from mothers to daughters, filled with handwritten notes and family secrets. The kitchen apron was worn with pride. After a long day at the office, the American man found comfort in his favorite armchair. The evening newspaper, a pipe, and perhaps a drink before dinner, these were the simple pleasures. This was an era when men worked hard to provide for their families, and these quiet moments of reflection were well-earned rewards. Image 20, woman watering garden in floral dress. Gardening was more than a hobby in the 1950s, it was a way of life. Suburban homeowners took great pride in their lawns and flower beds. Women in their prettiest day dresses tended to roses, zinnias, and dahlias, creating picture-perfect yards that rivaled any magazine cover. A beautiful garden was a reflection of a well-maintained home and a successful family. The backyard garden was a source of both beauty and practicality. Many families grew their own vegetables alongside ornamental flowers. This connection to the earth, to growing things with your own hands, was deeply valued. It was a simpler time when people understood where their food came from and took pleasure in nurturing it from seed to harvest. Handicrafts were an essential part of 1950s home life. Women knitted sweaters for their children, crocheted blankets for the home, and embroidered linens. These weren't just necessary skills, they were creative outlets. Every stitch was made with care, every piece a labor of love that would be treasured for years. Handmade gifts were the most precious. Before television became widespread, the radio was the heart of home entertainment. Families gathered in the living room, everyone finding their place, to listen to their favorite programs. Mystery shows, comedies, music broadcasts, the radio brought the world into your home. Children sat mesmerized, letting their imaginations paint the pictures the voices described. Retirement in the 50s meant enjoying the fruits of a lifetime of hard work. Couples who had lived through the Depression and the war years finally found peace and prosperity. Summer evenings on the porch with a cold lemonade, watching the neighborhood children play, reminiscing about their youth, these were the golden years they had worked so hard to achieve. Cleanliness and order were paramount in the 1950s home. Every surface gleamed, every book was properly arranged. Spring cleaning wasn't just an annual event, it was a way of life. Women took pride in maintaining an immaculate home, and a dust-free bookshelf was as important as a well-cooked meal. Your home reflected your character. The home library, no matter how modest, was treated with reverence. Books were carefully dusted and arranged, their pages preserved for future generations. Knowledge and learning were valued, and even in the television age, reading remained a cherished pastime. A well-kept home library was a sign of refinement and culture. The sewing machine was an indispensable tool in every household. Women made their own clothes, their children's outfits, curtains, and countless other necessities. This wasn't just about saving money, it was about craftsmanship and self-sufficiency. The hum of the sewing machine was the soundtrack of domestic productivity, creating wardrobes that were both practical and stylish. Music filled 1950s homes in a way we can barely imagine today. The ritual of selecting a vinyl record, carefully placing it on the turntable, gently lowering the needle, this was how you listened to music. Each record was treasured, its cover art displayed like a work of art. Rock and roll was being born, jazz was evolving, and every home had its soundtrack. Fashion in the 50s was bold, feminine, and fun. Full skirts that twirled when you danced, cinched waists, bright colors and playful patterns. Women dressed to express joy and optimism. The iconic polka dot dress, red lipstick, and perfectly set hair weren't reserved for special occasions. Looking your best was part of daily life. The 1950s celebrated feminine beauty and happiness. Women were expected to maintain an appearance of grace and cheerfulness at all times. That bright smile, that carefree laugh, they represented an era of optimism and prosperity. America had won the war, the economy was booming, and the future seemed limitless. This was the American dream in full bloom. The American businessman was the symbol of post-war success. Every morning, men donned their suits, placed their fedoras just so, and headed to the office. The city streets bustled with purpose and ambition. This was an era when a single income could support an entire family, when hard work and loyalty to your company promised a secure future. Corporate culture defined the 1950s male identity. Men worked their way up through companies, expecting to retire from the same firm they joined in their youth. The suit wasn't just work attire, it was armor, a uniform that represented responsibility, stability, and the provider role. Every man aspired to success, measured in promotions, raises, and respect. The jukebox was the sound of youth and rebellion. In diners, malt shops, and recreation centers, teenagers fed their nickels and dimes into these glowing machines, selecting the latest rock and roll hits. Elvis, Chuck Berry, Little Richard, their music poured out of jukeboxes across America, giving voice to a new generation that was beginning to question the old ways. Even children were captivated by the magic of the jukebox. The colorful lights, the mechanical precision, the ability to choose your own music, it represented the growing consumer culture where even kids had choices. Sock hops and dance parties introduced young people to music as a social experience, creating memories that would last a lifetime. Youth culture was exploding in the 1950s. Teenagers developed their own style, their own music, their own hangouts. The full, swirling skirts over layers of crinolines, bobby socks, and saddle shoes. This was the uniform of the new teen culture. Dancing to jukebox music represented freedom, fun, and a break from the rigid expectations of adult society. The beauty salon was a sanctuary for women. Weekly visits to have your hair set were social occasions as much as beauty treatments. Under the warm dome of the hairdryer, women read magazines, catching up on fashion, celebrity gossip, and homemaking tips. These hours of self-care were justified, even necessary, in an era that demanded women always look impeccable. Beauty rituals were taken seriously in the 1950s. The elaborate process of achieving the perfect curled and styled hair required time, patience, and professional help. Beauty salons were community hubs where women shared stories, advice, and companionship. Looking good wasn't vanity, it was a responsibility, part of being a good wife and mother. The barbershop was the male equivalent of the beauty salon. Men visited regularly for their shaves and haircuts, maintaining the clean-cut appearance society expected. The barbershop was also a social club where men discussed sports, politics, and business. The relationship between a man and his barber was built on trust and routine, often lasting decades. Attention to detail defined 1950s elegance. White gloves weren't just accessories, they were necessities for any proper lady leaving the house. Matched with a structured handbag, pearl necklace, and coordinated outfit, these details demonstrated refinement and social awareness. Dressing well showed respect for yourself and others, a value deeply embedded in the culture. Pearls were every woman's essential jewelry. They symbolized elegance, sophistication, and timeless beauty. Whether real or costume, pearls were worn for everything from lunch with friends to evening events. The woman of the 1950s knew that classic style never went out of fashion, and pearls were the ultimate expression of that philosophy. The 50s introduced iconic fashion elements that remain beloved today. Cat eye glasses and frames became hugely popular, adding a touch of glamour and intellect to women's appearance. These weren't just functional, they were fashion statements. Combined with red lipstick and perfect hair, they created a look that was distinctly feminine yet modern. Evening elegance in the 1950s was unmatched. Women transformed themselves for special occasions with elaborate hairstyles, dramatic jewelry, and glamorous gowns. This was the era of Hollywood's golden age, and everyday women emulated their favorite stars. Getting dressed up wasn't a burden, it was a joy, an art form, a way of celebrating life's special moments. The American diner was the beating heart of 1950s food culture. Chrome counters, red vinyl booths, and the sizzle of burgers on the grill. This was fast food before corporate chains, locally owned diners serving up juicy burgers, crispy fries, and thick milkshakes. The classic diner meal was affordable, filling, and delicious. It was where teenagers hung out after school, where families stopped on road trips, where communities gathered. Breakfast was the most important meal of the day, and nothing said American breakfast quite like a towering stack of pancakes drenched in maple syrup. Served with crispy bacon and fresh butter, this was comfort food at its finest. Pancake breakfasts weren't rushed affairs, they were leisurely weekend mornings spent at the kitchen table or at the local diner, savoring every bite while planning the day ahead. The candy store was a wonderland for children of the 50s. Glass jars lined the shelves, filled with every color and flavor imaginable. Licorice whips, jawbreakers, lollipops, gumdrops, peppermint sticks. For just a few pennies, children could fill a paper bag with treasures. The candy store owner knew every child by name, carefully weighing out each selection. These were the simple pleasures that made childhood sweet. Penny candy wasn't just about sugar, it was about choice, about independence, about the ritual of deciding how to spend your allowance. Each jar held possibilities. Would you choose the bright red cinnamon hearts, the sour lemon drops, or save up for one of those giant lollipops? The candy store taught children about money, decisions, and delayed gratification, all while filling their pockets with treats. The popcorn machine was the centerpiece of movie theaters and recreation rooms across America. That distinctive smell of fresh popped corn, the sound of kernels exploding, the warmth of the machine, it meant entertainment was about to begin. Whether at the Saturday matinee or a family movie night at home, popcorn was the perfect companion. Nothing fancy, just corn, butter, and salt, pure, simple enjoyment. A pie cooling on a windowsill wasn't just a cartoon image, it was real life in the 1950s. Home-baked pies were a source of tremendous pride. The perfect lattice crust, the bubbling fruit filling, the golden brown perfection achieved through skill and practice. Cherry, apple, blueberry, peach, each season brought its own flavors. A good pie could win ribbons at the county fair and the admiration of the entire neighborhood. Ice-cold Coca-Cola in glass bottles was the taste of summer, the reward after a hard day's work, the refreshment at every picnic and gathering. The distinctive shape of the bottle, the satisfying pop of the cap, the fizz and sweetness. Coca-Cola wasn't just a drink, it was an American icon. Served at every soda fountain, at every drive-in, in every home, it was the pause that refreshed. Image 50. Children playing with jump rope. Children in the 1950s spent their days outside, inventing games, exploring neighborhoods, and using their imaginations. Jump rope, hopscotch, tag, hide and seek. These games required no batteries, no screens, just friends and fresh air. Kids left the house after breakfast and didn't come home until dinner, roaming freely in a time when neighborhoods felt safe and every adult looked out for every child. The playground was the center of childhood social life. Metal swing sets, simple but sturdy, built to last. Children pumped their legs, trying to swing higher and higher, feeling that momentary weightlessness at the peak. No elaborate play structures needed, just swings, slides, and jungle gyms. Children invented their own fun, made their own friends, learned to navigate social dynamics without constant adult supervision. The hula hoop craze swept America in the late 50s. Suddenly every child had to have one, and every backyard became a practice arena. The satisfying rhythm of keeping the hoop spinning, the challenge of learning the hip motion, the competitions to see who could hoop the longest. Fads like the hula hoop brought communities together, children and adults alike attempting to master the latest sensation. Even teenagers embraced the hula hoop phenomenon. In their summer dresses and casual clothes, they gathered in backyards to practice, compete, and laugh together. These simple toys provided entertainment that brought people together, got everyone outside and moving. In a decade of growing prosperity, even the simplest pleasures could create a sensation. The hula hoop proved that fun didn't need to be expensive or complicated. The ice cream parlor was the ultimate destination for a special treat. Elaborate sundaes with multiple scoops, hot fudge, whipped cream, nuts, and a cherry on top, they were masterpieces of indulgence. Children pressed their faces against the glass case, trying to decide between chocolate, vanilla, strawberry, or the exotic new flavors. An ice cream parlor visit made any occasion special: birthdays, good report cards, or just because. The diner waitress was an American institution. With her crisp uniform, her practiced smile, and her order pad at the ready, she kept the coffee flowing and the meals coming. She knew the regulars by name, knew who wanted cream with their coffee and who took it black. The diner waitress represented efficiency, friendliness, and honest hard work. She was the backbone of the American food service industry. The milkshake was the ultimate soda fountain creation. Made with real ice cream, whole milk, and flavored syrup, hand-mixed until perfectly smooth and thick. Served in a tall glass with 2 straws, one for you and one for your sweetheart. Chocolate, vanilla, strawberry, or the adventurous combination of the two. The milkshake was romance in a glass, sweetness shared, a moment of pure pleasure. Boys' toys in the 50s were simple but endlessly entertaining. Marbles, collected, traded, and battled over in schoolyards everywhere. Each marble had value: the common cat's eyes, the prized Aggies, the stunning swirls. Playing marbles taught strategy, skill, and sportsmanship. A pocketful of marbles meant you were ready for action, ready to challenge your friends, ready for the serious business of childhood games. The streets and sidewalks were playgrounds in the 1950s. Hopscotch squares drawn in chalk, numbered 1 through 10. The perfect stone to toss, the careful hops, the challenge of retrieving your marker without touching the lines. Girls in their summer dresses played for hours, creating their own competitions, setting their own rules. The neighborhood was their playground, and hopscotch was their domain. Spring meant kite flying season. Open fields, steady winds, and homemade kites dancing against blue skies. Children would spend hours getting their kites airborne, running until their legs ached, feeling that magical moment when the wind finally caught and the kite soared. Kite flying taught patience, physics, and persistence. It was childhood at its most carefree, just a kid, a kite, and an endless sky. A new kite was a prized possession. Whether store-bought or homemade, each kite had its own personality. The careful assembly, the attachment of the tail for balance, the winding of the string, these rituals were as important as the flying itself. And when that kite finally caught the wind and climbed higher and higher, you felt like you'd conquered the sky. Pure joy, pure freedom, pure wonder. Summer reading wasn't an assignment in the 50s, it was a pleasure. Lying on the grass with a comic book or an adventure novel, the afternoon stretching endlessly ahead. Children read about cowboys and space explorers, about detectives and athletes. Reading sparked imaginations, took kids to distant worlds, taught them to dream. A good book and a shady tree, that was a perfect summer afternoon. Fishing was more than a sport, it was a way to pass down wisdom from generation to generation. Grandfather teaching grandson to bait a hook, to cast a line, to wait patiently for the telltale tug. These quiet hours by the water weren't really about catching fish, they were about conversation, about stories, about building memories that would last a lifetime. The lessons learned while fishing applied to all of life. Dollhouses were miniature worlds of perfection. Every piece of furniture carefully placed, every tiny detail considered. Girls spent hours arranging and rearranging their dollhouses, acting out the family scenarios they observed in their own homes. These weren't just toys, they were training grounds, places where children practiced being adults, running households, creating the perfect domestic scene they were expected to achieve one day. The bicycle was freedom on two wheels. With streamers on the handlebars and a basket in front, it was transportation, independence, and adventure. Kids learned to ride in their driveways, wobbling at first, then gaining confidence. Once mastered, the bicycle opened up the world. You could ride to your friend's house, to the corner store, to the park. Your bicycle meant you could go anywhere, as long as you were home by dinner. The drive-in theater was quintessentially 50s. Rows of cars facing a giant screen under the stars. Families brought blankets and pillows, settled into their vehicles with treats from the concession stand. Young couples claimed the back rows for privacy. The tinny sound from the speaker hung on your window, the excitement of seeing a movie under the open sky. It was entertainment, socializing, and romance all in one experience. Behind the wheel of a classic 50s car, you weren't just driving, you were commanding a piece of art. The wide steering wheel, the chrome details, the bench seats, the powerful engine purring beneath the hood. Cars in the 50s had personality, style, character. They were designed to turn heads, to make statements. Driving wasn't just about getting from point A to point B, it was about the journey, the freedom of the open road. The American automobile reached its pinnacle of style in the 1950s. Bold colors, sweeping fins, chrome that gleamed in the sunlight. Cars were symbols of prosperity, freedom, and the American dream. Taking a Sunday drive to the beach in your beautiful automobile, top down, radio playing, the whole family enjoying the ride, this was living. Your car said who you were and where you were going. While most men drove cars, some preferred the rebel's choice, the motorcycle. Sleek, powerful, and slightly dangerous, motorcycles represented a different kind of freedom. The roar of the engine, the wind in your face, the thrill of the ride. Motorcycles attracted those who didn't quite fit the suburban mold, who valued adventure over comfort, who wanted to feel truly alive. Saturday morning car washing was a family ritual. Father and son working together with bucket and hose, soap and sponges, making that automobile shine. It was bonding time, teaching time, pride time. A clean car showed you cared about your possessions, that you respected what you had worked hard to afford. The car washing ritual wasn't just about cleanliness, it was about values, responsibility, and the satisfaction of a job well done. Public transportation in the 50s had style. Rounded buses in cheerful colors, friendly drivers, a sense of community among the riders. Taking the bus wasn't seen as second class, it was simply how people got around. Neighbors greeted each other, helped with packages, engaged in conversation. The bus was a moving neighborhood, connecting communities, bringing people together on their daily journeys. The roadside motel with its neon vacancy sign was an adventure. Family road trips meant stopping at motor lodges along the highway, clean, affordable rooms with televisions and air conditioning. The excitement of checking in, getting the room key, exploring your temporary home for the night. Motels represented the freedom of automobile travel, the romance of the open road, the adventure of seeing America from behind the windshield. Travel in the 50s meant carefully packed leather suitcases stacked in the trunk, picnic baskets filled with homemade food for the road. Vacations were planned weeks in advance, routes mapped on paper maps, anticipation building with each passing day. The journey was as important as the destination. Loading up the car was exciting, adventure awaited, new places to see, memories to be made together as a family. If you enjoyed this glimpse into 1950s life, you can own the complete collection. A beautiful printed version of this album is available on Amazon KDP. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.
Mm-hmm.